Let's move on to the big story that we've been, in fact, tracking all day, and our big debate on the show, the list of words that MPs can no longer use in Parliament just got longer. Jumlajeevi, baal, buddhi, COVID spreader, Snoopgate, all joining everyday expressions like ashamed, abused, betrayed, corrupt, drama, hypocrisy, incompetent, even lie. So what are these ordinary words that are used perhaps in most debates doing on the list of what is considered unparliamentary? Well, that's the question on everyone's mind. It's also triggered instant protests from opposition lawmakers who say this is going to severely impact their ability to critique the government. The Lok Sabha Secretariat issuing a booklet which lists all these unparliamentary words. Let's take a look at some of the others. Anarchist, Shakuni, dictatorial, Tanashah and Tanashahi, Vinash Purush, Khalistani, Khoon se kheti. All of these could be expunged if the Rajya Sabha chairman and the Lok Sabha speaker so decide. They're going to have the last word. Now, the Lok Sabha speaker, talking about this just a little while earlier, insisted that there was no ban. He said, in fact, there is a list that is revised year to year, and many of these words have already been part of that list, and therefore this is no new thing, he insists. Let's listen.
मैं यहाँ बताना चाहता हूँ कि जो डिबेट और चर्चा में जो लोग चर्चा कर रहे हैं वह माननीय सदस्यों को भी या अन्य जो संसद के दरवाजे जिन्होंने नहीं देखे वो भी जो चर्चा डिबेट कर रहे हैं, जिनको संसदीय परंपराओं की जानकारी नहीं है, उनको ये जानकारी होनी चाहिए किसी शब्द को बैन नहीं किया है। उस समय के संदर्भ में जब जब भी आवश्यक हुआ तो विलोपित किया है, और कोई भी माननीय सदस्य को उस समय जब उनको उनके भाषण की प्रति दी जाती है उस समय उनको कोई आपत्ति हो, चाहे सत्ता पक्ष हो चाहे प्रतिपक्ष हो, कि आपने मेरे उन शब्दों को विलोपित किया है, वो विलोपित करना उचित नहीं था, किस कारण से किए हैं। अगर वो सचिवालय के अंदर कोई नोटिस देते हैं तो सचिवालय उस नोटिस पर उनको जवाब देता है।
Well, this diktat, such as it is, has sparked outrage in the opposition. The Trinamool's Derek O'Brien throwing an open challenge, and he tweeted saying he would continue to use some of these words. Let's get that tweet up on our screens for you. He was not alone. Rahul Gandhi, in fact, tweeted his own new definition of unparliamentary in a dig at the Modi government. Another opposition leader, Priyanka Chaturvedi, using the popular meme, kare to kare kya, bole kya, to vent her frustration at what is being seen as a new diktat. But let's take a look at some of those sound bites also. Asaduddin Owaisi leading the pack.
भाई प्रोसीजर पे तो बात कर लो, पार्लियामेंट के रूल्स पे तो बात कर लो। बिल आता है सरकार का, एक ही दिन में बिल आता है, मेंबर्स कैसे पढ़ेंगे? और उसको स्टैंडिंग कमेटी रेफर नहीं करते, वो क्या रूल प्रोसीजर में नहीं है? रूल प्रोसीजर के तहत स्टैंडिंग कमेटी, अब स्टैंडिंग कमेटी रेफर नहीं करते। और अनपार्लियामेंट्री वर्ड के दूर की बात, वो अहम नहीं है, कंटेक्स्ट अहम है। कंटेक्स्ट, जो कंटेक्स्ट होगा अहम है। अब कंटेक्स्ट क्या है कि मैं बोलूंगा कि मैं मोदी सरकार पर फूल फेंक के मारूंगा क्योंकि आपने नौजवानों को बेरोजगार बना दिया। मैं कहूंगा पार्लियामेंट में खड़े होकर कि मैं देश के प्रधानमंत्री और उनकी सरकार पर फूल फेंक कर मारूंगा क्योंकि देश के युवाओं का मुकद्दर बेरोजगारी बना दिया। तो क्या फूल को अनपार्लियामेंट्री बना देंगे आप? नहीं, फूल अच्छा, फूल बरसा के मारूंगा। और ये कहूंगा कि भाव फूल बरसाओ मोदी सरकार पर कि उन्होंने भारत के नौजवानों को बेरोजगार बना दिया, तो क्या अनपार्लियामेंट्री हो जाएगा? कंटेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट है। ये लफ्ज की बहस में मत जाइए, रूल्स को, प्रोसीजर को फॉलो करने की जरूरत है। अरे भाई, बिल आता है, स्टैंडिंग कमेटी नहीं जाता। स्टैंडिंग कमेटी क्यों नहीं जाता भाई? संविधान में जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज है उस पर काम करिए। मालूम ही नहीं, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी कुछ ही नहीं।
Abusive language, unparliamentary language is being constantly used. There has to be a restraint in using such kind of language. Parliament is to legislate. Parliament is to discuss issues. The entire nation watches Parliament online. I think it is time that our Parliament does proper use of language. But I would at the same time add, there cannot be arbitrarily a booklet placed in Parliament saying that such words are unparliamentary.
देखिए ये तो शब्द वहाँ पर एक किताब बनती है, कौन से शब्द अनपार्लियामेंट्री है और कौन से शब्द पार्लियामेंट्री होते हैं। तो हमने जो जो शब्द उन्होंने अपने पार्लियामेंट्री जीवन में कहा है, बोला है, वही शब्द हम बोलेंगे और वो बताएंगे उनको, भाई उनके डिबेट में उन्होंने क्या कहा। जब करप्शन की बात आती तो क्या करप्शन बोलने का छोड़ के कुछ और बोलते थे। आपके ये जुमले हैं उन्होंने कहते थे, क्या उससे छोड़ के और कोई बात उन्होंने कही है। तो जब खुद वो कहते हुए आए हैं, आज उनको क्यों लग रहा है कि वो शब्द ठीक नहीं है।
All right, joining us at this point, Professor Govardhan Das of the BJP, Akshay Marathe, spokesperson for the Aam Aadmi Party, is also with us. Akshay Marathe, let me begin with you. Let's just run our viewers through a list of some of these words. Some of them very common and in regular use. Betrayed, ashamed, abused, cheated, corrupt, criminal, crocodile tears, drama being expunged from parliamentary records, Jumlajeevi, hypocrisy, incompetent. It's a long list. Obviously, you know, we can't go into all of them. Why these words, in your opinion?
Ankita, let's be clear. This is a gag order by the government of the day on the opposition. The parliament is a forum that all opposition parties are supposed to use to corner the government, to hold it accountable. What I'm most impressed by, Ankita, is that the BJP is very self-aware. They know that the opposition wants to and needs to use these words like hypocrisy, ashamed, drama, that are best used to describe their work and performance. So I'm very impressed that the BJP is aware that these words describe them very well, and that's why they don't want the opposition to use these words in the parliament. But the supreme irony, I think, of all of this episode is that if a member of parliament wants to oppose this gag order in parliament and call it dictatorial, even the word dictatorial has been declared unparliamentary today. So this is the supreme irony of our highest house. And remember, this is the same parliament where the Prime Minister had called all protesters in this country Andolanjeevis. But that word is not unparliamentary. A word invented by Home Minister Amit Shah, Jumlajeevi, has now become unparliamentary. This is...
Well, at least, you know, you can't...
This hypocrisy...
You know, this is obviously an equal opportunities list because something, as you say, that was popularized by someone in the sort of, in the government benches and the ruling benches has also figured in that list.
I mean, as a matter of humor, yes, one can accept that. But we all know that the words used by the Home Minister Jumla have been biting them in the back. And that is why they don't want the opposition to use these words. They know that when the word Jumla comes up, everybody remembers the kinds of promises that the Modi government has been making for years and years. So the question today is not about these individual words. The question is, are opposition parties allowed to corner the government? Are they allowed to hold them accountable or not? The
Professor
parliament by
Das,
constitution is
about the fears at this point that this is in effect a gag order. Yes, we heard from the Lok Sabha Speaker and he said such lists have always been in existence, but have these words previously been in that list?
Yes, Ankita, good evening and good evening to my fellow panelists. Actually, there are two things I would like to mention here. Number one, some of the words, of course, they're unparliamentary, that cannot be tolerated, and that's not, one should not. And some of the words, of course, these are contextual. So basically, so if you are talking about some, some of the words, you can use it in a context. So that's what the Birla said, right? So therefore, I don't think there is any problem in there. And second thing is, these are the list comes and in a cycle, and every time there's a kind of
but Professor Govardhan Das, I think the question really is words like sexual harassment. There are those who are pointing out that there is a rape in India every 6 minutes. How can you not talk about sexual harassment in Parliament? Why would that even figure on a list such as this?
If anybody has any problem, that is also in contextual, and actually, if you have any problem, why don't you go to the High Court? Or why don't you go to the Supreme Court? Or you can write to the, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. You come, isn't it?
Do our lawmakers... They are our lawmakers. Should they not debate this? Akshay Marathe, you had a point. Go ahead.
Yeah, Professor Das, the members of parliament are elected by the people of this country. The people have sent these individuals to the houses of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha to raise their problems. If that forum is not going to be used for raising these problems, and you're suggesting we go to the judiciary, why don't you just ban the parliament entirely? Isn't that what you're trying to say? That the parliament is of no consequence any longer? Citizens should now just go to the judiciary. Is that how a democracy functions? Is that what the BJP is trying to say today?
What you are saying is, I am not saying exactly what you are saying. All I am saying is, if there is a problem, you go and debate in the parliament. And if you have any problem, you write to the Speaker of this parliament. And if you still it's not the problem is resolved, go to the Supreme Court. How that the Supreme Court will take the decision. And
Professor
of
Das,
course, there are most of the words, some of the words, there's a contextual. So I mean, in what context a person is saying that really matters, isn't it?
At the first instance, if my member of parliament wants to raise an issue on sexual harassment, wants to call the government incompetent, if he or she is not allowed to do that, then my voice is not being represented in the parliament, and that is an assault on our democracy. The parliament is the supreme altar of democracy. And if you are saying that these MPs cannot use words like incompetent, drama, ashamed, which are common parlance words, they're used to describe the government on a regular day-to-day basis.
No. Don't say these MPs and that MPs. This is rule for everybody. And one has to understand
surely there is a difference between government treasury benches. Surely there's a difference between treasury benches and opposition benches. The opposition benches are required by constitutional, duty to question the government, to hold it accountable. It is not for the treasury benches to do that. Unfortunately, it is only the opposition benches which can do that, and they need to use words that are understood in everyday English language. And you are today banning those words. This is extremely unfortunate. How is the parliament supposed to function when basic words that are used to describe this government are not allowed to be used?
What about following rules and procedure? Akshay Marathe, Asaduddin Owaisi makes an interesting point when he says words themselves don't matter. You can use words ironically. It is the context that matters. But what about following rules and procedure in Parliament?
Ankita, rules, procedures, laws are all made by people in power. And the question is not whether this is a rule that must be followed or not. If a rule is unjust, then it is our duty to question it. So if today the parliament is making a rule that goes against the very principle of our democracy, we don't have to follow it blindly. We should be able to question it. We should be able to challenge it. But that's when I said in my opening statement, if you want to call these actions as dictatorial, today these particular rules have even prevented that. You can't use the word dictatorial. You can't use the word tanashah. You can't use the word tanashahi. I mean, this is just shocking. This is the state of our democracy today.
But Akshay Marathe, what do you make of the fact that the Speaker has now come out and clarified that, these words are not banned? You can use them, but it is the discretion of the Speaker to then expunge it or not, depending on the context. Are you satisfied with that clarification? Or do you still see this as a gag, as a stifle?
Ankita, that is the point. Exactly. That is the point I'm trying to tell you. Every time any word they're using by parliamentarian, whether that has a context. If it is a contextual, there's no problem. If it is out of context and if you try to abuse with these words, then there is a problem.
Professor Das, then help us understand this. For instance, when the Trinamool's Derek O'Brien says he is now going to insist on using these words, is that, are those immediately going to be expunged from Parliament's records? Will there be any sort of disciplinary action against him? Or, is he going to go around using these words and it'll be absolutely all right in parliamentary debates? Then why have this list at all?
See, Ankita, if you talk about the Trinamool Congress, TMC, that they are always unwilling, right? Derek O'Brien, he will do the unparliamentary things that's expected. In fact, Mamata Banerjee does unparliamentary things. She throws papers on Lok Sabha Speaker's face. I mean, that is expected from Derek O'Brien and the TMC party. So I don't, I'm not surprised.
All right, leave aside the Trinamool, but Akshay Marathe, words are one thing, actions are another. You can sort of come down heavily on words, but are we going to see more decorum in Parliament going ahead? Or is that another debate entirely?
I don't think that this debate has got anything to do with decorum, because as you know that the duty of establishing decorum in the House belongs to the Treasury benches. It's the government of the day that is responsible for keeping the flock together and getting all the parties together and following certain rules and norms. But the problem is that the Parliament today has become a very adversarial space. The government and the opposition are constantly at loggerheads because the government does not let the opposition do its job. And this is another example of exactly that happening. If the government was gracious and large-hearted in letting the opposition express itself freely, then we would not have seen this kind of tension and ill will between the two sides. And that's what the root cause of the lack of decorum is.
Okay, fair enough. And in fact, many are now pointing out that perhaps creative synonyms will have to be found for these words in order to take important and critical discussions and debates forward. In fact, somebody quipping on Twitter that it's important to have Shashi Tharoor close by to perhaps offer some of those other words that can be now used instead. And I'm sure, these people believe that he has a list of those.